What's going on, guys? Zedd here, bringing you my personal opinion on Farseer Domain's balance, aka Farseer's Domain tier list. Now, as with any tier list, it is of course just my opinion, and I'd like to think that my opinion is pretty validated given my experience with the game and its, former game, quote unquote, former game, Atlas Reactor. And so I've got a lot of experience with the whole cast. I'm going to do my best to explain each character in, as best I can as to why I feel like they fit there. However, there will be some characters that I don't say as much on because some of them are just so solid or it's kind of a given why they're decent or things like that. Um, Realistically, the game doesn't have any unplayable characters. I'm going to explain the tiers in just a second. Now, if you want just the final list, feel free to just skip to the end of the video, but the reason why I'm going to go through one by one is so that you're able to follow along, and if you want to just find your character, you can just skip right on ahead and go to your character, and I'll share my thoughts on said character. Now, how this is going to be set up and broken down is I'm going to go by role, and then it is going to be ordered. So just for example, if I put, say, Delphinia and Invention in the same tier, um, at the beginning because they're front lines, and then fire powers and then supports, that doesn't mean that they are inherently better than the supports. So just keep that in mind. It will be segregated by role. However, within the role, it is ordered. Okay, and I'll make sure I point that out again, just so you're following along. Now, how I've done the tiers is I have top tiers, meaning that you could essentially you could take any of these characters into your team composition, and you'd be fine. Like there'd be no problems whatsoever. A is pretty much the same thing. Like you could take any of these characters into your composition and you would be fine. However, they're just not quite as powerful as the top tiers. Niche is B plus because these are picks where if the right conditions are met or the right team comps are selected, the map, etc., I think they pop off and they are, borderline top tier in the right situations. The B tier is going to be one that maybe is sort of like my cop out tier. This tier are characters who I feel maybe they're not. They're the way I like to describe it to myself is this character is never the pick, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad pick. It's just that I think that people in S and A tiers are just consistently stronger, and then the B plus tier will fill the niches. I don't feel as though characters in the one trick tier fulfill any niches individually, or rather, I should say, uniquely. However, they are not bad characters, and they are also characters who, if one trick, can be played to extreme levels of success. So that's why it's B plus and B. They're basically one and the same, but I just felt the need to add the separation. And last and least, we have the weak tier. Now, the weak tier characters are the only characters who I feel you genuinely never want to pick, and I will do my absolute best to explain why that is. But that's me looking at it from just a you want to win standpoint. Do keep in mind that, like, I repeat, all the characters are playable, all the characters can be, you can win with all of them, and you can totally play them. And if your favorite character is in the C tier, that just means that in the game's current state, in my opinion, I feel as though they are never the pick. But that doesn't mean you can't win with them. All right. So let's just get it started, and let's open up with. Hold on, I have my list here. Let's open with Juliet. So again, we're going to do frontliners in each tier, or we're going to do frontliners and then fire powers and then supports within each tier. So it's not like, yeah. So Juliet number one because she's a frontliner, but honestly, she pretty much is top 3 character in the game. Juliet, she just basically does everything you want out of a frontline. Her ability to just like the route and its design just works in unison with her dash, on top of it working with her rune, right? Her dash rune. She has the ability to reduce her own cooldowns. She has 35 shield on a button, which is one of the highest shield coefficients on a single action, let alone free action in the game. Her cooldowns are relatively low, albeit the dash is a little bit higher, but with how you cycle Juliet's rotation, the slightly longer cooldown on the dash is not a big problem. The other thing that makes her so oppressive is the fact that she can just give herself cover with her ultimate, so you can dash into a pretty, you know, sticky situation, but you're just out for free because not only do you weaken the enemies, but you're giving you and your team functional cover for 2 turns. And her passive allows her to essentially gain just extra shields every single turn, much like Ozavania, who, we'll talk about her when we get there, but Ozavania, she can't heal. And because she can't heal, she gains the passive of gaining 8 shields per turn. But you're telling me Juliet can get like at least 4 shields per turn? Like, so she kind of gets the what makes Ozavania so strong. Juliet kind of gets half of it just for existing, so long as you're moving. And then every turn you use Inquisition or her root, you of course get to full move. And so what that means is you can Inquisition root, full move, and you're gonna get at least 8 shields if you use your whole distance, or more if you are hasted. So like, trust me when I say Juliet is bonkers. Okay, she is bonkers when it comes to the frontline role. She's good on every single map and every single composition. She literally has no losing matchups. Her only downsides, if we can even call them downsides, is her health value is a little bit lower than some of the other frontliners. But again, that doesn't matter because of the fact that she has those shields per turn. So she's crazy. She does take a little bit of work to play. Now, by that I mean she's not a beginner character necessarily, but if you have a general understanding of the game and you understand how these types of games work, you will find that her skills she honestly kind of plays herself. And on top of having pretty good range with her one attack, she's just overall a really, really, really strong pick. And you can honestly pick her every single game for your frontliner, and I don't think you would ever be upset about it. Alright, next up we have one more frontliner here. I'm going to put Imuchin. So again, I do think Juliet is slightly better than Imuchin, but they have different strengths. So Imuchin is a character I've actually recently put into top tiers, and reason being is, admittedly, I didn't really put as much time into the character over the last little, or sorry, I haven't put as much time into the character as I should have, so I made an effort to put more into him recently, and honestly, like, with the right rune loadout, this character plays himself, and he's just so oppressive. He's incredibly difficult to kill. I would argue probably the hardest frontliner to actually kill, and the hardest frontliner to get away from. So if you think about how, or not how, but what a frontliner is supposed to do, right? You're supposed to lock down a foe, you're supposed to peel for your allies, you're supposed to secure kills for your team, as well as not die in the process. He does all of those things better than almost anybody. Where Imogen lacks compared to Juliet is he doesn't have the same damage output unless you're getting his passive 10 damage every single turn, which frankly is quite difficult, at least regularly. So he is sometimes limited to only 20 damage or 26 damage if you get both his cones, and it would be technically 36 in a perfect world, but that's not really the case. Whereas Juliet consistently will hit 25 in a big AoE on top of having her dash, which hits multiple foes for 25, 24. I think it's about 25 damage apiece. So they're both really good in their own way. Juliet kind of pops off more in the way of damage, whereas Imuchin has more CC and more chase potential, but Juliet is a little more sort of 1v7. She can just sort of solo carry the game and forget everything, whereas Imuchin needs his team a little bit. But he's honestly incredible. The fact that he can get 40 shields for a free action if you do nothing else, but the fact that he has that is really, really strong because it can still heal and do damage on top of being a 40 shield. So now you're getting just so many benefits. If you take Chase on him, he is so incredibly difficult to get away from. If you take the Flight of the Conqueror or the Root, the yellow rune, he's just like, my build with him is Cleverness for reduced cooldowns, the Root, yellow rune, and then Chase. And the reason I run that is I don't have enough downtime as this character to take full advantage of regeneration. I believe that unflappable on front lines is a mistake, and so therefore I'm left with Cleverness. The cool thing about Cleverness on this character is his cooldowns. I'm just gonna double check. Yeah, his cooldowns are 4 on his dash, 3 on his slow and haste, and 3 on his shield. That's some of the lowest sort of across the board cooldowns in the entire game. And so this character, he honestly just plays himself. And if you take cleverness, you'll find you can honestly stay in the fight for, I would say, on average, about 12 turns before you might have a downturn. And it's incredible how easy it is to chase opponents, lock them down, keep them stuck, and still stay fully healthy. Um, and get away with it. He's brutal. He just has everything that you would want, except for really high damage output, and that's it. If he did more damage, actually he's been nerfed in the damage department a few times, but if he did more damage, he'd be top one. Kind of like Juliet, he has slightly below average frontline health at 150, I believe, and so for that reason, he he no, he's not even hard to kill. No, the character is ridiculous. And I have gone on the record uh, in Discord stating that I think the character is brain dead, and I think that while Juliet takes a bit of work to play, I think Imuchen takes no work to play, uh, comparatively so. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Imuchen. I think he's really strong. I think he's really brain dead, and I think that any frontline player should know how to play one of these two characters, if not both, as they are the only two frontlines I have in the top tier category. And that transitions us to firepowers. So pretty much this needs no introduction, but Eris will be our number one firepower. And I don't know what to say about this character that hasn't already been discussed before, but I'll rehash it for those who maybe are new to the game or new to me and my opinions on this game. What makes Eris so strong isn't her damage output, in my opinion. It's not her damage output, it's not her ultimate, and it's not her fire trap. A lot of people will reference those three things. I don't actually think it's any of those necessarily. I think what makes her so strong is having unstoppable on top of a 30 HP shield. The reason why I think that that is so bonkers is it's the only unstoppable shield in the game, I believe, and it's on a firepower who already has, like, you basically can never outtrade Eris because she just does so much more damage on a one, like, shot for shot basis, on top of having unstoppable on a shield, on top of having access to haste, and if you were to take hypercharge, she has access to another source of haste on top of being unstoppable. Like, I play this character a lot, and I see a lot of people play this character, and I gotta say, she's one of those characters where it doesn't matter who is piloting her, they are literally just farming. Like, it's ridiculous. If you think it's her AoEs, if you think it's her trap, if you think it's her haste, or if you're like me and you think it's the unstoppable and the shield, pick one. Like, the character genuinely has no weaknesses. Oh no, she has no dash, Zedd. Duh. Well, it's irrelevant because by the time you get to her, to lock her down, she's either using the earthen armor to unstoppable, or she's using the air to haste out of there. So like yeah. And even though she doesn't in the current iteration of the game have the passives that she once had on the elements, it doesn't matter. She's just such a strong pick. It Yeah. If you haven't put a lot of time into Eris because you feel like her cooldown mechanic is a bit wonky, I highly recommend you try. And if you can kind of get the hang of it, she just runs the show. On that note, if the dash is considered a weakness, or rather not having a dash, then you could argue that her cooldown system makes her very telegraphed, and sometimes her ultimate turns can feel a little underwhelming because of this design. But this by no means makes her weak, and it just takes a little bit of practice and repetition to understand your skill rotations. And if you take regeneration on her for your green rune, which I highly suggest you do, you pretty much can use that downturn to set up your ultimate, activate the regeneration, run in pretty deep, get a really big ultimate, and then get out because it's more than likely that Earth will be your last option. So she's really strong if you understand her rotations, and if you want to play something a little bit different, a different unique style of play, she's honestly really strong, and I don't think she's ever not been top one. And there is an argument between who is better, her or Juliet. And yeah, if you yeah, she's so strong. Doesn't really need much explanation other than that. Just play her if you haven't, and if you don't think she's top one, then I would actually love to hear why you think that is, and we can talk about it. but the numbers don't lie. This character is ridiculous. Next firepower I have in top tiers is Lilvana. Now, this one definitely needs a little bit of explanation, and I do want to preface it a bit. I'm not saying that Lilvana is even close to as powerful as Eris. What I am saying is that if Eris was banned, Lilvana is the next best choice. So I feel like it's fair. When I was building the top tiers, there are two for each category, not category, sorry, each role, and Lilvana takes the best spot for me behind Eris. Let me explain why. So with Lilvana, as it stands, it's a very simple kit to play. It's a very simple kit to understand. Their passive is really, really strong. It essentially gives you access to double the might that any other firepower has in the game. Because when you're energized, you gain might, meaning you have the 2 yellow power-ups and the red power, or usually 2. You have the yellow and the red power-ups on top of potentially playing with characters like if you run Frug, for example, who can give you might, that's another source of might, or if you run Mebs, who can give energize, that's another source of might. So if Lilvana basically posts up near a yellow power up, they can just go to town. And if the fight is working or not working, if the fight is going around that area, there's like nothing you can do. You can't out trade Lilvana because they shoot for baseline 34, which is pretty good. And then if they're mighted up every second turn or every third turn, it's crazy. And then they have a grenade, so they can shoot over walls or hit over walls rather. They have a relatively mediocre trap, which, I mean, the trap's okay, but what makes the trap kind of crappy is it can be played around by just moving 2 squares. Now, I will say that most people won't factor in the trap during their turns. However, if we're assuming equal skill, if we're assuming, you know, an understanding of what's going on and the possibility of being hit by said trap, they will do their best to play around it. And so because of that, Lilvana's trap is a little underwhelming, but it can definitely be used to great effect to cover Ghostly Traveler usage, or to just check for if the enemy frontliner is going to offensively dash, you can throw it on them, and then they dash to the location and they might end up being stuck in the trap, so now they're taking the 30 from activating the trap and then the 15 the following turn. So it definitely has its place, but it's not Lilvana's strongest suit, and that's okay though. It's okay because the amount of might that Lilvana has access to, and a grenade, and one of the best firepower defensive actions in the game via their dash is crazy. And the reason why their dash is so good is it's a 4-turn cooldown, which is slightly below, the highest, so that's good. And on top of having pretty good range, it gives haste the following turn, meaning you can reposition again. Their ultimate just goes all over the place. You can hit up to 3 targets. Like, Lilvana is always in control if you have access to that energized. If you play this character while playing around gaining energized, it's crazy. Like, Lilvana just farms. Where they suffer is that their one ability is very, very thin, so you don't get a whole lot of coverage in, like, say, void tiles or just out of vision. And again, the trap is a little bit on the weaker side of things, and but that's it. Honestly, Lilvana is just so solid and so consistent that I have to put them above the consistent tier. And again, I wanted to be fair and put 2 of each role in top tiers. Lilvana takes a spot for me. You can absolutely debate this though, and I would say that you're right. If you felt like another character should be up here in their stead, or only Eris, then I wouldn't say you're wrong. This is just my opinion. I think Lilvana is crazy and good on every single map and every single team composition. So now we transition to the top tier supports. There are 2. First up, I have Zage. Now this one, this one's funny, right? Because in the first tier list, or the last tier list I did, which at this point is very old, and the game has undergone some different meta changes and all that, it I had her actually quite low, and that's just because my opinions of Farseer's domain gameplay and meta kind of shifted. But that aside, I think Zage is really, really strong. Now, why is she up here? The reason I think she's up here is very simple. She has ways to give allies unstoppable or sorry, two different ways to give allies unstoppable, and one of those is in an AoE, which is absurd. The fact that she can AoE unstoppable and have the single target unstoppable and give herself energized and give her allies energy. This is one of the few characters in the game who can genuinely get three ultimates per game, and that's no small feat. Like that is very very uncommon, and because of that, she inherently has really really high value from the support role. Also, her utility is actually quite good. So yes, she has healing. Yes, she has unstoppable. But giving energized means there are some, for example, if you have an ally who, you know, they might be at 99 energy next turn or 97 or 98, but if you were to use your one ability on them, you give them that 3 energy, now they can ultimate next turn. Like that's a really big swing actually. Like the implications of that are insane. And so for that reason alone, I think she's really, really strong. But then the double unstoppable is crazy. Not every support can give unstoppable, but she can. And she even has her what do you call them? Her clouds, right? Her trap. And she's one of the few supports who has a trap. And so she as well has synergy with either pushes or pulls from your frontliners, and not a whole lot of supports can say they do that. So I think Sage is really strong. Her weaknesses are her numbers are a little bit low in terms of her damage and healing coefficients. But if you're energized, her heal does more. On top of self healing with her heal, by the way, kind of like Agnar when he has 2 potency or 3. And her ultimate as well, same thing, it does heal herself as well, unlike, say, Winifred. Okay, so the fact that everything she does something for her own personal gain, whether it's energy, health, energized, unstoppable, like whatever it is, she's always affecting herself and her team, which is not actually all that common in the support role. And just, yeah, like where you're going to feel her weaknesses are her below average coefficients and her lack of a dash. Other than that, and I guess a lack of shield too, technically. But other than those 3 things, she does everything you could ever want from a support, on top of having really, really, really good range and access to multiple heals and unstoppables. And yeah, she's just really strong. She can feel a bit squishy though, but you know, the reason why I don't really take squishiness as a metric for supports is frankly they're all squishy except for maybe 1 or 2. And that's just kind of the reality of playing the support role, right? Is if you're heavily focused down, you're gonna die almost always. That said, though, Zage having access to a free action unstoppable is massive because that means that she can free action unstoppable and just full move, right? Or you can free action unstoppable, activate regeneration, and full run. Like it's crazy. It's actually really hard to lock down this character. So I think Zage is probably top 1, though you could debate someone else, and I think that she's at minimum top 3 support, depending on situation. Oh, that said, before I move on, if the enemy team for whatever reason doesn't really have any CC, let's say they only have a single slow, let's just say it never happens, but let's just say, then sure, maybe Zage is a little excessive, right? Um, like say if they were running, I don't know, their only tank or their only source of CC was Juliet Root, okay, maybe you wouldn't want to take Zage. Maybe it wouldn't be worth it. But even then, there's an argument there. Next up, and this is one that I've actually been in a discussion with people recently about, is Mtuku. So Mtuku is a character who I feel is relatively underrated, and or I feel like people don't fully grasp why he's so potent. So from the support role, you're not just there to heal and deal damage. You're there to bring the team utility, shield, reveal, traps, CC, right? You're a support. You're not a healer. And this is an argument I have with people quite often who maybe disagree with this placement, but I want to explain. So if Zage is the top 1 for all the reasons I listed, and the negatives being no dash and maybe lower cooldown, or sorry, coefficients, Mtuku doesn't have any of those problems. Where Mtuku can struggle a little bit is he doesn't have access to healing on his one ability or just like every single turn like some supports do. Yes, that's true. And he doesn't have the same amount of range on his one ability as every other support does, aside from Nadia. Yes, that's true. But that's the end of the list. Mtuku is ridiculous. This character, he, if he does swing, he gets to move further than any other character who swings on the same turn. The reason why that's bonkers is he hits for as much damage as a frontliner in a similar AoE as a frontliner, but gets to move farther than a frontliner. Meaning he can like go in and out, in and out, in and out, or you can swing and sort of take a more advantageous position. Then, of course, he has his reaction half cover, which he can use on himself or an ally. If he uses it on an ally, it only goes down to a 2-turn cooldown, which is ridiculous. Like, even if you were to tell me, oh, but Zedd, that ability sucks at high level play because you're assuming that, or every player should be positioning properly. And I'm going to tell you that that is just not true. And the reason why that's not true, other than it's not true, is the enemy team has full authority to CC, take spots away from you, dash into, like, they have so many ways to control the movement of both teams and both players that you're objectively wrong if you think that Mtuku half cover is bad because of good positioning from your team. Okay, like that's just wrong. I don't know why anyone would say that, but maybe somebody out there says that. Now, because it goes down to a 2-turn cooldown and it gives half cover, it's the amount of energy he can generate with that on top of his really high energy gain on his one ability. This dude is another support who also generates about 3 ultimates per game, 2 and really close to 3. You're definitely getting 3 if the game goes to 21, 22, but you'll still get 3 more often than not if you are playing him well and you're kind of staying in the fray and using your cooldowns. I would say for me, just off the top of my head, I typically get my first ultimate at around turn 7 or 8, and then yeah, about 14, and then yeah, about turn 20. So like he's getting like 2.7 or 2.8 ultimates per game if you're really on point. And then if you pick up an energized here or there, right, you'll definitely get it. But going back to his kit, so you're swinging like a frontliner, you're moving farther than a frontliner, you're as tanky as a frontliner, your burst heal can heal for up to 60 if you use might. His passive, any might he gets buffs his healing, which means that if you bring him, or sorry, if you pick up the red power-ups with him, which is less dangerous because guess what? You get to give yourself half cover, then you can just keep constantly cycling these ridiculously strong heals from your 2, your 4, yeah, your 4, and then your 5 as well. Takes me to my point. Even though he can't self-heal with his 4, it's still shielding, which is, you know, effectively decent because his burst heal heals himself as well, which kind of makes up the difference. But that healing ability goes through walls entirely, and it's a big, you know, it's like a... It's kind of like Zage ult, but spread out and a bit weaker. So, in a sense, he has a mini Zage ult, in a sense. And then his ultimate, not only does it grant team-wide, map-wide unstoppable, but it can actually do some pretty hefty damage if there are people close to Mtuku, as well as the ability to root enemies. Means that even if like, say you're running, or say you have your fire powers, they're going to benefit from the unstoppable and the heal, obviously. Now, maybe one of them is being chased by an enemy frontliner, that frontliner is going to be rooted, and now you've peeled for your firepower. Your frontliner, who's chasing one of their firepowers or support, now gets access to a route which they could dash through them and root them. Right? So the ultimate is just such a big swing in pressure, and it can honestly change the tide of a fight, so long as the frontliners are doing what frontliners do best, and on top of giving a nice little heal to your team. But the big thing for me with him is the fact that yes, he has big heals, but the fact that he has a root and an unstoppable and a heal on his ultimate, and it gives half cover, like those things alone make him a force to be reckoned with. Never mind times where he actually picks up a might buff and gets to actually swing a little bit with his one ability. I've said before that I think Mtuku is probably top one in the game if you don't need the excessive unstoppable from Zage. And I will still stand by that, at least currently, because he's not just a heal bot, he's not just a damage bot, he does bring other utility. And for me, that is inherently more valuable in this game where options are good. And just outputting numbers, sometimes you need more than that to win. And Mtuku really displays this quite well. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think he's insane. As a somewhat of a support main, I would say too that even if you don't think he's as strong as I think he is, you really cannot be underestimating this character. And if you don't really play him much, I highly recommend you do, because he honestly is just this unkillable machine who makes his team unkillable. So that's my thoughts on M2Ku. Now, that's it for top tiers. I spent a good chunk of time on them. So now for the consistent tier, I'm kind of just going to go through them because these ones, they don't really need as much explanation. But I feel like the top tiers, the one tricks and the weeks, are going to take a little bit more time. So consistent, let's just get right started with, where are we here? Delphinia, Dargrim, and Croc. So first up, Delphinia. Again, remember that these are ordered. Delphinia is a really strong character. Another character kind of like Imuchin, one that I didn't put a lot of time into up until recently, but now that I have and I've kind of worked out how I like to play the character, I think she's really strong. What makes her uniquely strong compared to other frontliners is her ability to not only consistently root and lock down an opponent, but her ability to body block for your team. The ability to use her dash with intent of body blocking is insane value, because no other frontliner can just willy-nilly say, I'm going to body block for you. It has to be a deliberate action. It has to be something that they go out of their way to do. Whereas Delphinia, if you keep Flight of the Valkyries or whatever, her first dash, that's what it's for. Like, that's what makes it so strong. Um, but then back to her root and lockdown potential, if you have full energy or you're going to go into full energy, she can root 3 turns in a row. If you have the yellow root rune, right? That will also apply a stack of frostbite. A lot of people don't realize that. So that's 1 stack and 1 root. Then on the following turn, you use any damaging ability that isn't her ultimate on top of cold as ice. That's 2 more stacks. That's a second root. Another turn. Third turn, you get ultimate or you have ultimate, boom, there's a third route. Then fourth turn, they're slowed because they're stuck in your field, right? So you literally need to make sure that Adelphinia doesn't hit you even once, or you can't get away. Like, that's it. It's over. So her lockdown potential and her just massive amounts of tankiness and body block potential make her uniquely powerful. Where she suffers a little bit is her damage output can be a little ho-hum, and if she does go to use her one dash for a body block or uses it with intent of proccing the second one and it doesn't go off, then she can definitely be a bit of a sitting duck, and that feels really, really bad because it kind of makes Delphinia useless for at least a turn, maybe even 2. So aside from having a bit of a YOLO mentality on her too, or you kind of have to, and the fact that all of her sustain is shield based, meaning you have to assume that the enemy is going to hit you. She can kind of be left in the dust and doesn't really swing that hard. But again, her lockdown potential and her body block is what makes her so strong. Really, really good character, tricky to play. Dargrim. Dargrim is another team player. He is what I like to refer to as a combo character. He, of course, has his dash and then his free action ultimate. Those, on top of a might buff, just do insane amounts of damage. And the ultimate doing breaching damage means that that's all true damage. Like, the numbers you're seeing are exactly what they will be. And not to mention that if you ultimate the first turn, or you dash ultimate, and then you can even say use your root catalyst, that's another turn of damage. So like, he's just a very burst heavy character. His passive is quite cool and good if your team is working with you, in that you're just gaining passive healing for existing as your team is doing their job in shooting. What's cool about him too is he has like so much range for a frontliner on everything. Yes, Delphinia's 3. Yeah, her 3 has the most range out of any frontline ability in the game, I believe. Other than Vex Dash, but we'll get to that. But Dargrim consistently has insane range on top of having a very unique and strong trap-based ability. However, where he can suffer a little bit is raw damage output, as well as he doesn't really want to tackle people by himself. He doesn't have that same chase potential that, say, Imuchin or Delphinia has, and he doesn't really bring the numbers like, say, Juliet or Croc. So he kind of fits in this weird position where it's like he needs his team to pop off, but if his team helps him, he's like insane. Dargrim is so hard to handle if he has a little bit of a team around him, and that cannot be understated. He works incredibly well with characters with, say, walls or traps because of his push to the side knockbacks. So, say, Omicron, Frug, Vex, or Eris Fire, things like that, right? He works so well with characters who want to lock them down, and on top of just having big range. So the good thing about having huge range as a frontliner, it means that you're a bit more forgiven for poor positioning, or likewise, it means that you can position safer than most of the other frontliners in the game. Where he can struggle a little bit is he doesn't have inherent self-sustain that he himself controls. By that I mean, your passive heal is your only source of healing or shielding. So, again, you kind of need your team to do some work for you, whether it's hitting the person you're swinging at or your support is actually healing you. So he's not a 1v7 character. No one in the A tier is, but yeah, really strong with his team. Next up, Croc. Croc is a character who I've gone on the record saying, and I still will, that in his current iteration at this time in the game, the only thing keeping him relevant is his ultimate ability and his passive synergetically so. So his passive will activate at 100 energy. He gives might to all allies within vision and 7 range. By vision, I mean it doesn't go through walls. And then his ultimate is bonkers. It is a massively damaging AoE that goes ridiculously far, and it leaves a lingering trap the following turn, and it slows, which means that if you're hit by Croc's ult, you're probably stuck in the ult again, kind of like a more immediate Omicron ultimate. And it's ridiculous. Like, the amount of energy that this character gains too, specifically on his dash, I believe it's 15. Yeah, he gains 15 energy per target hit on his dash, so you always want to get multi-person dashes with him. Optimally, you would sort of dash, and then the following turn you'd gain 100 energy, and then you ult. Like that, in a perfect world, that's how you do. You would set up your Croc ult. So it's crazy. He can get kind of like Mtuku and Zage. He can like push 3 ults a game if you're getting really lucky. And yeah, however, other than his ultimate, I think he's actually pretty underwhelming. His self-sustain comes in the form of a predictive-based heal, which can of course be countered by numerous ways or numerous characters. Either people don't hit him, Vex Parasite even on the following turn, Izine will bother him both turns. Like it's a little bit easier to play around his sustain than other shields and heals. But when it works, because if you really lay into Croc the turn he uses his heal and you don't have a Vex on your team, he's pretty much gonna gain most of it back. I believe it's 80%, 70 or 80%. Yeah, 80%. His damage numbers are quite high, I'll admit. On like his dash, it's like 24 damage, really high, and the dash range is quite good as well. So he does bring the numbers much like Juliet, but he doesn't bring sort of that well-roundedness and 1v7 potential that Juliet does. But again, what keeps Croc relevant is that massive ultimate, and even if that ultimate baits dashes, you've baited at least, like, it's huge. So you've baited at least 2 dashes, assuming you hit nobody, or at least a dash or 2 plus you hit somebody. Like, it is such a momentum swing that it keeps him relevant. Even if you only played him for an alt bot, it's crazy. Those are my frontliners for the consistent A tier. I don't think you can go wrong with any of those characters at all, or frontliners rather. Next we have the firepowers. There are a few more here. So we have, let's see here, we have Galactos. I'll go one by one for the firepowers because there's a few more here. So Galactos is strong. Really high damage output. lots of access to, well, basically everything he does is AoE. Even his one ability, the fact that it is piercing and bouncing, is really, really powerful. Um, if you can take full advantage of his passive, he can start generating some really high damage too with the positioning based ones. So for example, if you are 5 squares away from a star tile that is 5, you now deal that much extra damage, which is really, really strong. His grenade is huge. It's baseline 3x3, but it goes up to 5x5, which is one tile radius larger than Lovana's, so it's even better in that respect. His dash is probably where he kind of falls short a little bit, in that his dash is incredibly predictable and or limiting, however you want to describe that, but that does not mean it's a bad dash. What makes it actually quite a good dash is the fact that A, it's a teleport rather than a slide, so he avoids traps, or B, and B, that it by landing on a star tile, he is now activating his shielding passive, which he gains shields based on what the star value is of a constellation tile. So, as the game goes on, Galactos gets stronger because he gets more and more tiles, and the tiles get higher and higher coefficients. So he's the kind of character where if you're going to kill him, you need to do it fast. You really want to get him out of the game early, or at least you want to shut down some of his big tiles by literally standing on them if he doesn't have a way to hit you. And this is so that you can limit his dashes, and that's what makes his dash a little cumbersome. Is if enemies are really trying to shut you down, they can, or force you to go to really crappy tiles. His ultimate is crazy. It's incredibly hard to play around, contrary to what anyone's going to tell you. If someone says Galactos ultimate's easy to play around, they're kind of being ignorant, because if you don't necessarily have vision of Galactos, you have no idea what you're like, where you are, and it's not so easy to just avoid the tiles forehead. That's a crock of shit. I think anyone who says that is being ignorant and or overestimating their own capabilities or underestimating the Galactos. So I think he's really strong. The reason why he's behind Lil Vanna for me is, yes, they both have a line-based attack. Yes, they both have a grenade. They both have a big ultimate. They both have a really good dash. So, like, what's the difference, right? Why would I put Galactos behind Lovanna? Very, very simple. I think that in order to fully optimize Galactos and get full damage out of his kit, it's a lot more work. And not only that, it's kind of out of your hands, because depending on where the enemy goes determines how effective you are as a character. Furthermore, if the enemies take control of a zone that you've kind of tiled up, it can be quite hard for you to take full advantage of those tiles. Lastly, I think that Lovanna having the passive that they do have, having access to twice as much might as the rest of the cast, it cannot be understated how important that is on a firepower character. So I think Galactos is the third, fourth best firepower in the game, but I do think that they're a little bit behind Eris and Lovanna. But I think if you wanted to argue and say Galactos was top 2, I don't think you'd be wrong. I think that good Galactos players are super threatening, bad Galactos players are kind of a meme, but because of that inherent skill gap, it's really obvious when a Galactos is farming. And yeah, he's not that easy to play around. I don't care what anybody says. I think it's kind of ignorant to just say avoid the tiles. And I see that argument come up a lot, and that's so crap. That's so crap. So anyway, next up, Izine. I hate this character so much. She's got to be my least favorite character in the game to deal with, because she's unique in that she has anti-heal every time she hits somebody, as well as a 99% anti-heal on her 4. 4? 3. Her anti-heal. And the most frustrating part about this character is the fact that her invisibility gives her more vision and more range. And the reason why I say that that's the most frustrating thing is if she was always forced to play kind of within a 7-8 range like every other firepower, she would be a whole lot harder to lock down. But the fact that she can swing off of when she throws the dagger into walls, I believe it gains up to 3 range. I believe. Like if you were to turn around and just throw right behind you, it goes 9. I might be off, but it's 9 or 10. So she can swing further than any other firepower aside from Regulator, and in theory. And because of that, you can just keep applying the anti-heal over and over and over. But then if she uses her 2 ability and goes invisible, Now she gets the anti-heal pretty much across the map. She gains ultimate pretty much across the map, or like she's just such a pain in the butt to deal with, and her dash is really, really good. It's got good range, it goes through walls, it's yeah, yeah. This character is really good, and the fact that she just has so much anti-healing built into her kit, uniquely so, might I add, automatically makes her better. In a world where we had more anti-healing characters in the game, I don't think I would have Azine so high. But the fact that she does, or she, again, is unique in that she's one of two who, in the current game, has anti-healing, I think she's crazy. I think where Azine players can maybe fall short is they think that they're invulnerable when they use their invisibility, and so they kind of run into danger. Or likewise, Azine players play far too passive and they're really ineffective. So she's one of those characters tricky to play, but if you can strike that balance, she's a menace, and she's incredibly hard to lock down if you take the right runes, such as Unflappable, Hypercharge, and the Invisibility dash. So she's really strong. I think she's top five again for her unique anti-healing. If she in theory did not have anti-healing and just had higher damage output, she'd be good, but I don't think she'd be as good, because I think that decent damage AoE is better than high damage single target, just generally speaking, and that's strictly my opinion. So her swing for 36 in a straight line it's good, but I would rather swing for 34 with more coverage, right? Or the ability to cover more dash squares, etc. Personally, but that's neither here nor there because she's really strong and really doesn't see as much play as she deserves to see. All right, next up we have Scrapper, and I'm gonna do these together, Violetta. So these characters, they're kind of both scrappers in their own sense. The name kind of says it all. Scrapper does tons of AoE damage. His grenade is really strong, arguably stronger than Lilvana's, arguably because of his passive. When he picks up a might power up, or sorry, a major power up, he's passive activates, which if you're using your nade, not only does it add a little 3x3 to the middle, making it as large as a Meb's ultimate, but it also means that it's dealing insane damage. If you picked up a might power up and you nade and you hit someone with the middle square of the nade, it's an ultimate. Like it's an ultimate in itself. It's ridiculous. Scrapper has one of the best dashes in the game. Reason being is not only does it have great range as a dash, but it has great attack range and its AOE. Like it, Scrapper is so potent if you're playing within his effective ranges, which is quite short. On top of having, arguably one of the strongest firepower ultimates in the game, given that it does have CC potential and it can pull people into traps. Most firepowers don't actually have hard CC like that, and so it makes him very, very, very strong. He's really good at just challenging people, taking space. He's one of the few characters who actually benefits from power-ups in unique ways. Again, much like Lilvana in that respect. And I think he's just a really, really strong character. And with a little bit of practice and understanding of his ranges, you can really pop off with this character. Violetta, kind of in the same vein. She wants to kind of stay in the fight. She wants to be blasting you constantly, like every 2 turns. In a perfect world, Violetta would jet set, right? So she would use her prep phase action, where she'll gain haste and then might the following turn, and then blast. Prep, blast, prep, blast. Now, it doesn't always work that way, of course, and when she doesn't have those downturns, she has a bouncing projectile, which is frankly really good, because not only does it have means of swinging around cover, but it also means that she has a lot more range than she may otherwise have. Her ultimate is insanely strong, it just controls the flow of the game. She's one of the only characters where when Violetta's at 100 energy, you almost always have to not move. Like, it's kind of ridiculous how if she has 100 energy, she could sit on 100 energy for 5 turns, and some people would stay still for at least 3 of those 5 turns. I'm not even joking. You have to respect her ultimate. You have to. And the pressure she gets from that alone is crazy. Plus the fact that she can ultimate and then knock you back into her own ultimate the following turn, technically. And she has some means of self-shielding. She gains shields if she uses Jet Set or her ultimate, or her dash, actually. It, yeah, she's just such a burst character with very little counterplay other than standing still, and that feels that feels really, really bad. It feels really bad to not really want to move. But she has good utility. Yeah, the knockback, it has a weaken, she has shield, she has haste, she has the whole package. The only thing with Violetta is her range can be a little bit underwhelming, or she really needs that jet set in order to pop off, because without might, her damage is like it's good, but it's not, she doesn't have like the same explosiveness that some other characters do without the jet set. Um, but yeah, she's ridiculous. Like she can 1v7 honestly, and if you don't kill her fast, she's going to kill your entire team. I think she's really strong, really hard to deal with, and again, her ultimate literally sit on 100 energy and watch enemies just stand there. It's actually ridiculous. Um, Violet is crazy. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. She's so strong. All right, next up, Cephaline, and this is actually the last firepower I have here. So this one is, or rather, she's a character who I was sort of in debate with myself a bit. I wanted to put her in the one trick category, and reason why is I feel like she's a character who, if, there are some ultimates in the game that you don't necessarily want, and there is a world where the enemy composition doesn't have any ultimates that you want. And because that process was going through my mind, I thought, 7 range firepower who has a pretty garbage AoE ability. That's her free action, spray. That's really good for coverage, but like that's it. It doesn't really do much else that's super meaningful. Um, it's it's there, like it's a thing, but really what you're using it for is the extension of negative buffs. So for example, if you were to dash and breath on an enemy, you would be weakening and slowing them for 2 full turns, which is pretty strong. Uh, pretty strong. Or if you were to reveal them with her trap and then breath on them, which doesn't really happen, but if you were to do that, then they would be revealed for 3 turns. So I understand what the breath is trying to do. I just don't know if it's really that strong as a move. Now, while I don't think it's that strong, I do know what it's supposed to do. And the fact that she can enable, like, so she can breath on a front line, like, let's say Barb, right? Like, let's say Barb uses his 2 ability and does a massive slow on, like, 2 enemies. The fact that Cephalini can breath and extend that slow, that's really strong. And so, after considering that, I was like, okay, breath can actually be pretty good. Her trap is one of the better ones out there in my opinion because of the fact that you can hit each one individual times. Theoretically, you could swing for what, 48 damage technically, and it reveals for 2 turns, which means that if you get hit by the trap and you have the not Ghostly Traveler, whatever, the invisibility dash rune, it doesn't matter. You're revealed. So, and she's really good counter character to people like Regulator, Haka, um, even Tiamnata, right? Uh, Zio, like yeah, she's good. It just her kit, and the reason why I think she should maybe be in the one trick category is her kit takes a lot of like understanding the enemy composition to fully maximize her kit. However, what keeps her in consistent category for me is having access to self-healing, which most firepowers don't. The fact that she can swing around her and in a straight line, so she can brawl really well. And the fact that her dash is again a teleport that completely isolates a target. And then the fact that her ultimates, if for no other reason, you would use it to deny an enemy from ulting, that's really strong. Like that alone is really strong. So I think she's consistent, but with the caveat that if you were to one trick Cephalini, whatever, she would be insane. But I don't think you have to one trick her in order for her to be good. that makes sense. So yeah, that's my thoughts on her. I really wanted to put her in the one trick tier, but I don't think that that would do her justice, and I think she's a pretty solid character. All right, next up supports. I only have two in this category. We have Esme. Some people would say that Esme should be in the place of Mtuku, and I actually understand where they're coming from. Some people have said that because she doesn't have to take turns off of doing damage in order to heal, that makes her really strong. I agree that she's really strong. I think she's the third best support in the game. And I think that situationally speaking, she could be the best support in the game if you didn't need the unstoppable from Zage. However, as I mentioned when I was discussing Mtuku, it's called support, not healer. And the fact that Esme has an absurdly long cooldown dash, which weakens, and then a 10 shields on her free action, right? That's it. That's it for utility. Everything else is just raw numbers. And sometimes raw numbers aren't enough to win a game. Oftentimes they're not enough to win a game, actually. So for that reason alone, I have her in the A tier. That said, I think she's incredibly powerful. If you are, and what was really cool about her is she's a good option for firepower players who don't like to support, play Esme. Or if you're a support player who likes to carry, play Esme. Like, while she is susceptible to being focused down, she does bring the numbers, and so it's really, really easy to secure kills with her massively long range or to top up allies from absurd distances. However, in order to use her passive, she has to be a little bit closer to her team or use her ultimate. And that kind of leads me to my next point is the only means of self-healing for Esme is her ultimate. And that is a little bit of a problem if again, you're being focused down. But if you're left to your own devices, Esme literally runs a train on everybody, but she doesn't have unstoppable or ways to give unstoppable. She has a garbage shield option. She does not have any CC whatsoever, and her only utility is a weaken on a dash. So she's good if all you want is numbers, and I think she's amazing in double support compositions. That cannot be understated. I meant to say that about M2Ku as well. If you're gonna run double support, those are two of the strongest characters in the game, period. Like Mtuku, Esme are so good in double support. But, you know, that's not super standard in the meta right now, even though it is strong. But Esme's really strong though. Like don't misunderstand. I think she's insanely good, but she just doesn't bring those other layers that Zage and Mtuku do. That or yeah, she doesn't bring those layers. Therefore, I think she is a little bit of a worse character. But don't misunderstand. She's good. Next up, Winifred. And this is actually the last character I have in this tier. Winifred is a really good character. He has a little more utility than Esme. While he doesn't have like a massive burst heal, he does have burst or massive shields, and he has access to shields per turn, right? So if he uses his revealing light, and so he illuminates and or sorry reveals and weakens enemies. Then, if allies are walking into that, they also gain 25 shields. On top of his ability to give 40-20 or 50 to one target, it's really, really strong. And then his one ability and the way that it bounces, it's actually quite easy to deal 36 points of value per turn, which is really, really good. And that's how you have to look at numbers from the support perspective is what kind of value are they generating on a per turn basis? And some characters are a little more bursty, obviously, but Winifred is one of those characters who's just consistently outputting value, on top of having a very unique and powerful free action via diffraction. If you can take full advantage of diffraction, it is like one of the strongest free actions in the game, bar none. And then his ultimate, really his ultimate is like so good. The only thing that holds Winifred back, or I should say the only things, plural, is A, no dash, which can be an issue. B, no self-healing. The only self-healing he gets is from shielding other people or using diffraction. Or heal or shielding other people or using diffraction. So if he's focused down and kind of mistimes a shield or he doesn't actually have the shield up, that can be a big problem. He also does not have access to an unstoppable action, just like I was saying with Esme, so he cannot give allies or himself unstoppable if necessary. So Winifred is like an incredibly potent support. He actually has utility. He has really good swingy turns, but like Esme, can't give unstoppable, doesn't have good self-sufficiency if properly focused, and can just kind of fall short if his health is getting a bit lower. However, he is fully capable of kiting around the enemy front line for as long as humanly possible if he's using illuminating light to benefit himself. This is assuming that it's a one-on-one situation. So if you're a frontliner or firepower player, don't think that you're going to kill a Winifred single-handedly. It's just not going to happen. You're definitely going to need two people or more to kill him, and for that reason, he is incredibly irritating to deal with, as well as having a really, really powerful mass reveal weaken, which is good. So really strong character. I think that if you looked at Zage, Ntuku, Esme, and Winifred, if that was your support pool, like you're golden. You don't need anybody else. You don't need to do anything else. And you could say that any of these four characters are the best in the game, and I would probably concede that notion. But they're all really, really strong. Like, yeah, they're those four characters are insane for the supports. And that's it. That's it for consistent. So again, just kind of bounce through them a little bit quicker. Now we get to the niche category. This is where, again, to reiterate, niche does not mean bad whatsoever. Niche means they are as powerful as the consistent tier or the top tier if the certain conditions and or parameters are met in their respective roles. And I'll do my best to kind of describe what those roles are. Okay, so first up, Vex. Vex is a awkward frontline in that she doesn't really have traditional defensive options. She doesn't have access to self-healing and barely has access to self-shielding. Instead, what she has to do is use things like Parasite if she wants to heal, or get support from her team, of course. But what makes her really strong is the ability to just do everything through walls, basically, other than Parasite. Her dash can go literally across the map if you have the right full cover lineups, and it does absurd amounts of damage in a massive half circle, and she kind of just snowballs if you land a really good dash. You really can't get away from her if she lands that dash. Her damage output is actually very high. She's more like a frontline who plays like a firepower, and for that reason, she doesn't really fulfill that sort of sticking to potential that you would get from, say, a Croc or a Delphinia or a Muchin. She more frags out. And so, for that reason, she's not really played in the same way as the other frontliners. Um, she's probably the most awkward frontliner to play. You have to play her very non traditionally. But she's very good on maps that do have a lot of full cover, or maps where, or I should say enemy compositions where they have maybe like a burst heal or two. So say she's a really, really good counter to Mtuku, or like Scrapper because he's got self-healing as well. Characters like that, or Croc, like she's an amazing Croc counter for that reason. Crack, Croc, whatever. So yeah, she's niche, but she's a really strong counter pick, and she's really strong on, in my opinion, anyway. I think she's really strong on Graveyard as well as, um, uh, Mercenary Base. Mercenary Base because it has the long buildings that she can just go right through. It has a lot of half cover, so even though she doesn't have inherent defensive options, or sorry, traditional defensive options, she has access to plenty of half cover in order to make up for that. Plus, her low health at 145, you really do need some defensive options. So Graveyard, because there's so much full cover on that map that she just doesn't really care. And when she uses her dash, she often will dash into full cover of her own. So I think those two maps, she's really, really strong. I think Luna Lab, not so great. And Tokoli Temple, not so great, in my opinion, though you could totally play her there too. She's less about the maps, I just wanted to mention them, but she's more about, okay, do I counter the enemy team with this pick, yes or no? For example, I don't think she's that strong into Winifred, because Winifred uh, is like is more focused on shield output rather than healing output and things like that. Or I don't think she's great into Zage because Zage can really bait her dash with the traps as well as having unstoppable. So yes, you're going to eat some damage, but the Vex might be stuck in the trap and you've unstoppable. Therefore, you're not slowed and you just get out of there. So niche pick, but when she works, she can really work. She works very well in double frontline compositions, or she's a really good frontline choice into double support compositions because of Parasite's design. So there's a little more to it than that, but that's where I think she really pops off is when the anti-heal is at its best, or when she has a ton of cover to play with and or full cover to go through. Again, i.e. Merc base or Graveyard. I think she does really well there. Next up, I have Omicron. So this one is debatable, right? But let me try to explain. Originally I had Omicron in the consistent tier, but the reason why I pushed him down a tier into niche is even though he is a consistent choice, I think to fully utilize his kit does take a certain ally team composition. He himself cannot make him, like, it's really hard to get his extra damage going from his passive. It's hard to lock people down for his ultimate. It's hard to set up laser face, like all these things, it can be quite difficult to fully utilize. And so because of that, I think he benefits greatly from having the correct frontline or another either firepower or support who actually has meaningful CC. So for example, like he's really good with say Scrapper or even Mtuku or somebody with meaningful CC, Violetta, right? So as long as he has more CC on his team than just a single fire or frontliner, that's when I think Omicron shines. But if that's not happening, I don't really think you're getting the right value out of the character, and he really just needs that general sustain. Or likewise, if you were to pick him with say a Barb, because Barb has access to 2 CCs, that's really strong. Or same with Imuchin, that's really strong. But if you don't get those specific sources of CC, Omicron feels super lackluster. And so for that reason, he's in niche. If you get the right team comp though on your own team, Omicron just pops off. But if you're never really activating his passive outside of Dash Laserface, because that's easy, let's be honest. Dash Laserface into that is really good. That's a total of what? 50 damage? Yeah, so like he can do it on his own. It's just to get the full thing without burning 2 cooldowns for 50 damage. If you think about it that way, 2 cooldowns for 50 damage isn't that good. Then not so great. But if you can have a team to really just like constantly hit those second beam, like your one ability leaves the trail, if you can constantly do that multiple times a game, free. All right, next up, Regulator and Yuri. So these characters kind of one and the same thing, right? They typically flourish on the same maps. They're played in similar ways. But let's talk about Regulator first. So Regulator has, first and foremost, he's the sniper, right? That kind of goes without saying. Very little in the way of AoE. He has a lot of line-based attacks. His ultimate is, in my opinion, one of the strongest in the game. And then he has his smoke clouds to try to mask his position. However, Regulator kind of sucks when there's no clear lines of sight or when the maps are quite small. And with the current map pool and the way the maps are designed, he really only pops off on 2, maybe 3 maps, those being Mercenary Base, Luna Lab, and Foundry. If it's not those maps, he can really have a hard time doing anything at all, or he has to rely on his trap more than anything else, and that can feel really bad. But if you pick him on those 3 maps, it's pretty good. Here's the thing though. You have to be very careful because he doesn't have access to Self-Unstoppable, while he does have access to Haste, but he doesn't have a dash, and he's very squishy, no shields, no healing, no nothing, and he's honestly actually quite hard to support or peel for as a tank or sorry, as a frontliner or support player. Why? Because Regulator is usually so far from the problem or from the rest of the team that if he encounters a problem, he's kind of on his own. And so because of that, you have to be so careful, and you have to be in the right position, and you have to hope you're shooting your own cover, and you have to be on the right maps. Just so many stars have to align for Regulator to really like be a full character, that he's niche. But if those stars align, or you do have the right enemy composition, or maybe they don't have a character who really sticks to Regulator all that well, then yeah, you're golden. For example, if they were to pick, say, um, Juliet into you, you're good. You're pretty much good. Like Regulator is one of the few characters who kind of abuses Juliet, in my opinion, because it's really hard for her to stick to him, and you can't really rely on your team to stick to someone as well as your frontliner. So yeah, again, just have space, clear lines of sight, and stay out of vision, and you'll be fine. But if you run into problems, you're probably dead. And so because of that polarizing, you know, how polarizing Regulator is, he's niche. But if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like he's very feast or famine in that respect. Um, I can count the amount of times that a Regulator feels like they popped off or they did nothing, and that's usually how he plays. And so, really strong when he works, really bad when he doesn't. But if the stars align, good pick. Yuri, a lot of what I just said translates, so I'm only going to talk about what's different. Yuri is really strong on Nexus. And the reason why is Nexus has so much full cover around the middle and then the edges that he can just always be out of vision and always be effective. And Foundry a little bit as well, but specifically Nexus. But if you're on Nexus, Yuri is pick or ban, literally. If you're not picking or banning Yuri on Nexus, you're kind of trolling. And he's just so good when he can just ignore what the enemies are trying to do. And he does have means of getting away, similar to Regulator. He has a dash, or rather his little sort of kickflip thing. What makes that actually quite good is even though it is a blast phase dash, it actually is a counter to being CC'd. So say if a Barb was going to pull him or a Croc was going to kick him away, he can use this and not get CC'd by the enemy and instead go exactly where he means to go. And so it's like a pseudo unstoppable. I believe the technical term is like super root, but it it it's not quite enough all the time, and it's pretty easy to read when it's coming. And so Yuri can definitely pop off in the right situations. And again, like Regulator, Feast or Famine, but specifically Nexus, if you want to really feel the might of Yuri, try playing him there. It's brutal if your team can give you some space. He is absolutely nuts. On top of having, again, a Firepower who has one of the few CCs in the game via his ultimate, really, really, really strong to have a massive root. So niche, but definitely works when he works. And last up in our niche category, I actually have Mebs. So this one needs a little bit of explanation, I feel. Like Yuri, Mebs flourishes from playing behind full cover because everything Mebs does goes through full cover other than his direct free action burst heal. Now, because of that, it can play safely. He's frankly just a heal bot. He doesn't have access to give unstoppable to allies, like Esme and like Winifred. They all share this weakness. However, what makes Meb so good, again, is Nexus. You can position anywhere on the map and still be effective everywhere on the map, and that is so, so good. While he does struggle to have sort of self-protection and self-sustain, his raw output is insane. The fact that his ultimate, his second full energy ultimate is global as well, means you can just pump out massive healing in a burst on top of an ally out of nowhere, or likewise, if you take Unflappable or you have access to Unstoppable via an ally, you can just use emergency button and just get out of there. So that's all fine and dandy. Yes, he puts out numbers and yeah, he goes through walls, but what makes Mebs niche? Well, so why would you pick Mebs over other supports who are just more consistent? And I think the answer to that simply lies in the fact that he can give energized. The ability to give energized to a teammate it cannot be overstated how strong that is. And the fact that his heal is such a low cooldown means you can constantly do it. Now, when we were discussing Lilvana, you can imagine that if you're picking Lilvana, or you pick Mebs when Lilvana's on your team, or vice versa, it's ridiculous because now you have the power up, you have the yellow power up, you have the might power up, you have the Mebs energize. On all these things, Lilvana, and if you pocket Lilvana specifically and you enable them to just completely destroy, and you use your other ability, so always use the heal on Lilvana, always make sure it's free action, and then use your shield and your beam to heal the rest of your team. It is so good. It's so good. So Mebs is always good on Nexus, or always good because Energized is good. But specifically, if you have Lovanna on your team, Mebs jumps up like a whole tier or two as the support, because if your Lovanna is good and they're aware of the synergy between Mebs and Lovanna, you actually just pop the fuck off and it feels so good. You can literally 2v6. Like I'm not joking. Like, it's so ridiculous. However, if you don't have Lovanna on your team and or the enemy team has a lot of CC, Mebs can be a little sus. But if Lovanna's on your team and you have to play support, give Mebs a shot and you'll see what I mean. It can be really, really strong. And that's it for niche category. Jumping it down to one trick. So again, these characters are by no means bad. Actually, quite the opposite. A lot of them are very good. However, at no point do I feel like, yes, this is the pick, right? And I feel this way with all these characters. However, everybody now, from Juliet to Mebs, I think there is a time where I've gone, this is the pick here, or like this character, they were picked and they were banned, therefore this is the pick. And so up till now, every single character is incredibly good. Now we're getting into the but why? Like, why would you pick this character over this character? Or it's just not worth the effort it takes to make them work, or they're just so inconsistent. They're either like they have high highs and low lows. And I'll do my best to kind of explain these as we go through. But the reason I'm calling the tier 1 tricks is if you main these characters or you play them a lot, you should not feel bad about that. I just think there are maybe stronger characters that will do the character's job a little better. Okay? So let me just make that explicitly clear. I'm not saying these characters are bad, I just think that they are less consistent, or why bother? Okay? So first up, we have... Sorry, let me get the list. Oh, right. Barb. So this is the last frontliner. Barb. Originally, I had Barb in consistent tier, but what I've come to realize over time with Barb is, like, the things you do with Barb, you can do with most of the other frontliners. And so, for example, if you want a beefy sort of meat shield beat stick kind of character, you can just play Imuchin or Croc. If you want access to good CC and sticking potential, just pick Imuchin or Delphinia. If you want access to high health pool and sustain, again, just pick Imuchin or Dargrim at that point. I just didn't feel like Barb really brings enough. Like, yes, his passive is good in that he's always unstoppable, but I don't know. I've never felt like with the other frontliners that, like, oh man, I really wish I was like consistently unstoppable right now. Like, it just doesn't matter really, because as a frontliner, you're typically the last person the enemies want to hit and waste their CC on anyway. And given that there's not a lot of CC in the game on characters other than frontliners, I will tell you, it's very rare for the frontliners to be butting heads. It actually never happens unless it's a full team fight or like a 2v2. You get my point. You're never duking it out with the enemy frontliner. It just doesn't happen. So because of that, it's like, well, how valuable is Unstoppable on Barb really? And then the argument is, well, honestly, like, maybe taking the slow or the root was better than being weakened. Literally, especially as a frontliner, because your damage is typically 1-for-1 lower than the other characters. That said, where Barb does shine is, number one, his damage output on his one is, I think, the highest. Let me double check. Yeah, 34 damage within 2 squares. Like, what? That's insane. Like, so his damage output on his one ability, nuts. His damage output with his ultimate, if you focus one target, insane. And the fact that he sort of gains access briefly to sort of a Tiamnata-like passive when he ults is actually really good. What that means is you can contest space that you may not otherwise be able to contest, or more importantly, you're able to deny health or might power-ups that might, or that you may not have otherwise been able to contest, right? And yes, he has access to 2 CCs, a slow and a pull. Here's the thing though, with those, is the pull is a massive 5-turn cooldown, and the slow and a 3-turn cooldown, big AoE, but there are other CC abilities in the game that are on a 4-turn cooldown, so one more and one less. So it's like, okay, if Barb has two, wouldn't that effectively mean that both his CCs are on a 3-turn cooldown? Well, not quite, or like they're both on a 4-turn if you put one up and one down. Not necessarily. And because it's a cone, sometimes the angles don't really work as well, or the fact that it's a slow, it's not like a knock, it's not a hard CC. I'll call it more of a soft CC, so you can still play around it. I don't know. I just don't think that Barb really. Yes, he's annoying and he's a good character, but it's like, man, he just doesn't bring that same level of utility and I guess frustrations that other frontliners do. And if you want to use his ultimate to deny powers and stuff, it's like, well, other frontliners have their dashes for that exact same purpose. I think the character is good. I just think his lack of range outside of having the cone and his just like his passive doesn't feel necessary on a frontliner. Therefore, his ultimate, it's like I would much rather have something that does a little more, whether that's a CC or maybe it's, um, like Juliet's giving cover, things like that. I don't feel like Barb is niche because I think you could pick him in almost every situation. I just don't know why you'd want to pick Barb over, if we're just going to compare one for one. I don't know why you'd pick Barb over, say, Imuchin or Croc or Delphinia. Like Delphinia, Imuchin, and Croc, in my opinion, do Barb's job better than Barb while doing other jobs. And all of those characters have more range on their one abilities than Barb does. Or no, Croc's the same. Sorry, Croc's the same. But then Croc has a far more impactful ultimate than Barb. So I don't think Barb is bad. I just don't know if he's the pick. And it's one of those where it's like I would take any of these 5 in S and A tier over Barb. However, in terms of consistency, Barb is far more consistent than Vex. So let's make that very clear. And so in terms of the tier list order, Barb would be like here, but because he's not niche, and I think he's just a little outclassed, right? So just understand kind of where I'm coming from. I think Barb is better than Vex in most situations, but in the situations where Vex is better, she is far better. And then I think that the 3 tanks in A tier are always better are almost always better than Barb. Okay, so take that for what you will. I think the character is good. I just don't think that he is the pick. That's just my opinion. That you can argue it. The one trick tier is going to be the one with the most butthurt people. I already know, so it's fine. Next up, Tasha. I actually really like this character. I think she's a lot of fun, but I don't think she is that strong, actually. And the reason why I think that is I think her coefficients and her general flow is very awkward. She she does have the 20 health shield that can activate and explode the following turn. That's probably one of my favorite moves, but it doesn't feel appropriate on a firepower. That's the kind of ability that I would want on a support. I think if that was on a support, it would feel incredible. But the fact that it's on her makes it feel a little iffy. Her 4 ability, her cloud, so you plot the cloud for 20 damage, and you have to hope that where you're going or that there's an enemy in between you and the cloud. Yes, you can use your ultimate to manipulate that, but in order to get full value, you then have to hit an enemy with the cloud and the dash, which may or may not put you in a compromised position. Her lightning bolt, her 2 ability, yeah, it's a low cooldown, but it is a little awkward to aim, and it's like, man, I wish I just had a normal firepower ability, or like a normal firepower attack. For her to really pop off, you need to be playing pretty close, and I think that genuinely, I think Tasha only pops off kind of in the same ways that Omicron does. If you have allies who can just constantly lock people down in your bubbles, or if you throw your shield on a tank, and they could take full advantage of the follow-up damage. Like she herself just doesn't feel impactful enough. She's more of like an enabling character. And the only time where I feel like, man, Tasha was pretty strong here is if I'm using like self shield and then I dash in and like hit them with the dash and the AoE, or I've clouded and then I dash and I hit them with the cloud and the dash. And so she always needs multiple abilities in order to feel even remotely relevant, and I think that's the problem. It's that everything Tasha does individually feels awful, but if you start to combo her and you play her as a combo character, similar to Dargrim with his dash ult, it's like, okay, now this character is feeling pretty good. She's also pretty hard to kill, I'll give her that, because she has the shield and access to a relatively low cooldown dash, and even though it's not cooldown based, it is energy based, so you do have to keep that in mind. I don't know, I just don't feel like she brings the pain as consistently as others. However, because of her various combos and synergies and all that, you can totally one trick this character, and I think you'd be good. Like, you'd be a strong player. You wouldn't really feel like you're inting, but I don't know. She's not really the pick, because if I wanted to pick a character who would like does what she does, like burst damage, go in, sort of Scrapper style, I would pick Scrapper, Violetta, or Cephalini. Like, I wouldn't default to Tasha as the pick. That said, if Tasha's one ability was reworked, as in her one action, or maybe not reworked but buffed. So as it stands, it does 26 in a cone around her, and then in 5 range another 26. And if they're hit by both, it does 34. If that was just always like if both the cone and the beam were 30, and they both did say maybe 32, I think that would be much stronger and more reliable. Or let's not do any of that and just make her one ability hit 6 range and do 28 rather than 26. Now we're in business. Now she's more reliable. Now she doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to use my 3 4 5 in some conjunction or some synergy with each other, because as it stands, her 1 and 2, you kind of just use them based on which one you need, and her 3 4 and 5 you just use to try to synergize with itself, realistically. And that's kind of crap. It doesn't feel great. And even then, because your 4-5 combo is relatively telegraphed, it can just whiff. And if you whiff, you're kind of a sitting duck. And yeah, I don't know. That's my take on Tasha. I think she's a good character, but she is just a little outpowered right now by easier to use characters. Fun to play though. I love the character. I just don't know if she really shines in the way that is meaningful right now in the current state of the game. Tiamnata. Tiamnata is played by a few people who, or sorry, pardon, is one trick by a few people and had a lot of opportunities to see different playstyles with the character, some aggressive, some passive, and I myself have put some hours into the character as well. And what I found with TM, it's like the kit is too basic to be good. Okay? Now, I want to elaborate on that point. What makes Tiamnata so good, in my opinion, is the one ability and the ultimate. Everything else is so ho-hum and like irrelevant. The teleport, the fact that dashes teleport, yeah, that's cool, but it's a pretty stubby teleport and a little easy to figure out where Tiamnata is when it's not bugged. The power up, the one turn power up thing is like, I mean, that's cool, but is that all it has to do? Like, I've always felt like if that ability did something else, now we have a really, you know, really good character. But just giving me one turn of energized, one turn of might, 10 health, or one turn of haste, it's not enough for me. Uh, Personally, I just, if it gave me like 10 shields, or yeah, I don't know, if it just always gave haste, let's say, like you would use it, and if you use it on a blue power up, it would do nothing, right? I don't know. Maybe that'd be broken. So like 10 shields, right? Let's just say it gave 10 shields and it did the power up. That alone would actually like take Tiamnata to the next level, because where Tiamnata struggles is, yes, they can hit around like walls. They can always hit somebody, but it's quite difficult to hit somebody for 30. And the fact that 30 is the base coefficient of their one ability, I actually find pretty weak, especially at 7 range, which is, 7 to 8 is the average for firepowers, and so they're on the bottom half of the average. 30 is quite low for damage output in general, and then even if you're hitting around the wall or around the structure, you're only hitting them for 15, you know, realistically. So in order for Team Nada to really pop off, not only do they have to be protected because they're relatively squishy, but they have to be positioned in a way where they're sort of flanking the enemies. Now, in order to position to flank the enemies, that means your frontliner has to be applying pressure in order for you to walk around the frontliner to flank the enemies. So no CC, no utility, literally doesn't do anything other than throw gas at the enemy and hope it works. And it's not enough. That said, Tiamnada's ultimate, if you can get pretty good with it and do it in a way that covers a lot of space, sure, Tiamnada's ultimate's pretty good, but a lot of characters' ultimates are pretty good. And yeah, I just don't think TM really shines. Um, but that said, I think that if you are good at the character and you understand like the maps really well, because this character really revolves around understanding angles. If you can play Tiamnada in a way where you take full advantage of the fact that they move first, which can be valuable, um, or you take advantage of the fact that you're hitting outside the 45-degree cover angle, so you are able to hit consistent 30s, then yeah, Tiamnada is actually really, really good. Also, Tiamnada can play pretty well with Haka. There's an argument there or like Regulator as well, characters who can kind of let Team Nada play a little closer without Team Nada being the one to take all the pressure. Um, yeah, that's my thoughts on Team Nada. I think the character is decent, but I don't think they're as bad as the characters in C tier. So this is one of those situations where I didn't have anywhere else to put them other than B tier. I don't think Team Nada is niche. I don't think Team Nada is ever the pick, ever. There you go. So I don't think TM is ever the pick. But if you wanted to pick the character, you could definitely win with them because of how good the ultimate is, and the fact that if you're good at hitting 30 damage per shot with the character, yeah, you're gonna do really, really well. Next up and last for firepowers here, I have Zio. So I was actually thinking about putting Zio above TM. Actually, I think I will do that. Zio, it's kind of like the next character on this list. Very, very feast or famine. I feel like when Zio works, he works, and when he doesn't, he doesn't. And unfortunately, like while his counters are few, they do exist. So for example, Delphinia can cause him a lot of problems. Ozavania can cause him a lot of problems, and then who else? Characters with like traps can cause them some issues, quite a bit of issues actually. And then the fact that his ultimate can be stolen by Cephalony, that's huge. Like if you pick Zio, the enemy team can just default to Cephalony and be like, "Oh, hey, thanks for letting my character be like insane." On top of shutting down yours. So he's one of the characters in the game that actually has like a genuinely threatening counter. On top of the fact that he is a melee character, realistically a melee character, and he really only pops off if he has like most of his cooldowns and his ultimate and might ruin. Like he just needs so many resources to just, and he just needs to explode. But unless that's happening, he's neither here nor there. That said, he has a lot of nuances to the kit. He has a lot of positional nuances as well, with the fact that his shurikens or kunai, whatever they are, every other turn, kind of like Chloe Drone in that sense. So you can kind of play up close and then far, and then close and then far, and then kind of play that way. And then setting up your adrenaline burst with your shield and then going in for the root. Things like that. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of time to really get the hang of. And then using adrenaline burst and unloading your entire kit is great, but like what happens if your target gets out? Or what happens if your target gets shielded? What happens if like it's so many resources for one thing. Okay? And it's kind of like the Tasha argument where why does it take me so many resources and cooldowns to accomplish the same thing that another character could do with like 2-1 abilities, right? So I think he's very feast or famine. He's either going to farm or get farmed, and I don't know. He's another one of those. I don't think Zio is ever the pick. But if you want to one trick him, I think he's a pretty good one trick, to be frank. And yeah, take that for what you will. He also is pretty. He's a pretty divisive character in the community right now. Some people think he's broken. Some people think he's useless. I, I'm honestly, I hate to say, I kind of float the middle. I think he's useful on specific turns, and even then, was it worth it? Or he's just useless every other time. So that's my stance on Zio, and I am gonna put him above Tiamnata. I low-key think Tiamnata sucks the more I'm like talking about it. Again, if that free action just did something more, then honestly that might be enough. Or instead of 30, if it was 32, sure, that might be enough too. But that's neither here nor there. This is my list after all. All right, next up, Agnar. So Agnar, like I was alluding to with Zio, is very feast or famine. If Agnar is left to his own devices, the dude farms like literal top one support, and that's not even debatable. Like you will not win that argument if you try to tell me that 90 to 100 energy Agnar is not the best support in the game, because he is. Um, well, yeah, at least top two. um, However, the question is like, how often does that happen? And what about when you have to use blow off steam? So you're burning 30 energy just for a 30 health shield on somebody. And like that right there, like boom, you've lost your 3 potency. And then theoretically, if you're sitting at 90 energy, how quickly you could just instantly get absolutely melted by, like, say, let's just say you got like dashed on by the frontliner and shot by a regulator, and all you did was you threw your one ability. Now you're at like 130 energy and you've just taken all that extra damage, right? So Agnar can go from like 0 to hero or hero to 0 in the blink of an eye. He at 3 potency is insanely powerful. At 2 potency he's decent, but at 0 to 1 potency he's just kind of he's meh, like he's not great. And yes, he has access to Unstoppable, so there is that if nothing else. Again, given that there are only a couple of supports that can even give Unstoppable outside of Ultimates, it's yeah, it he's just feast or famine. I don't know why Agnar would ever be the pick. I don't know where you're sitting there going, you know who I'm going to pick here? Agnar. And the only time that that's not true is I think Agnar is insane in double support compositions. Specifically, if you ever want to try playing Agnar with Esme or Agnar with Mtuku, it's so good. Like it is so good. So other than that, I don't think he's um, really ever the pick. However, um, if you were to one trick Agnar and like be the best Agnar player in the game, he's really, really good. However, if focused, he needs some serious help, and the fact that Energize doesn't do anything on him kind of sucks. It makes rune choices on him a little awkward. And then the fact that if you want to stay at full potency, you essentially don't even have an ultimate. Like some people might argue that that's kind of bad, and while I agree to a degree, I think that his buffed up abilities more than make up the difference, but that's just me. Um, yeah, he's either really strong or really weak, and it's rare that he's sitting in between. And so for that reason, I have him down here as a one trick. If you love Agnar, play Agnar, but you're just not going to get the consistent performance that you would hope that you get. And if the enemy frontliner has any source, any capability of reaching you, they're going to do it, and they should. Um, but for that reason, I think he's a strong character or a weak character, and therefore he's so polarizing. He's never the pick, so he's not niche, and he's not consistent, so he's not consistent. Therefore, and he's not weak, so he's not weak. So he's a one-trick character, in my opinion. Nadia. Nadia is a character who, on initial release, I thought she was actually like top 2, top 3 because of her ultimate. However, the more I played her and the more I came to realize it's like, okay, kind of like Crack, in that I think Crack's a little bit of an alt bot, but at least he does good damage, right? Whereas Nadia, I had originally thought she was an alt bot, and then the alt got nerfed. It's like, oh, well, okay. we're gonna nerf the one thing that made this character like really good. Okay, great. Um, she's very awkward in terms of her ranges. Her access to healing is gated behind a dash, excuse me, or a her free action heal. The problem with the free action heal is the effective range is very short. I believe it's only like 3 out from her, which is good, but like, or 2 out from her, but it's not. In order to fully utilize it, you typically dash, right? So you would use her dash, whether it's to an ally or an enemy, doesn't matter, and then you would use the heal. But then you're kind of stuck using the second dash no matter what. Now, if you're using your second dash and it's to ally then to heal, great. Here's the kicker. If you've done that, you're probably not in range to use your one ability. So like she plays this weird game where she wants to be kind of where the frontliner plays, but she doesn't really have the sustain or the, I guess, not sustain, but she doesn't have like the defensive tools to stay alive in that range, but then she can't play further back. See, to draw a comparison in Atlas Reactor, Su Ren was a very, very similar character. However, what made Su Ren a bit stronger was Su Ren's one ability was a lot like Juliet's in this game, where it could either go in a straight line at decent range, I think it was range 4, or it would go in an AoE around her. Then on top of that, you had her I think her 4 ability was a prep action. It was 8 range, and you could put it on allies or enemies, and depending on the mods you took, it would be very impactful. Whether it was like haste and something else, or slow and something else, I can't remember. But Su Ren could be played at those further ranges, the odd turn here or there. Which is so Mtuku has the same thing. Like, yes, even though he's a short to mid-range character, he has 8 range abilities. Nadia doesn't have that, so she always has to be in. There is no out for her unless she's ulting. Like there is no turn where Nadia can be way back. And that is kind of her inherent problem in my opinion. If she even had one action, like, so she has her fence, right? But what if the fence isn't the right play? Like if all your enemies are taking, or sorry, if all your allies are taking cover damage, and they're moving decently, you don't need the fence, or you might not even be in range to use the fence in order to set up like a CC combo, right? So the fence it doesn't quite do the same thing because it's not immediately valuable. It's sort of predictive value. Again, assuming your allies don't need the cover, and even if they do, you can't always get it in the right spot. My point is that Nadia doesn't have the right amount of sustain to stay in the fight, but then she doesn't have an action that's valid to use outside of the fight more often than not. And then her ultimate, which is what makes her like really good, was nerfed recently to where it's a little harder to use, it's a little harder to aim, and it doesn't have the same coverage. Nadia's ult essentially is a kill securing tool, and that is really good. But other than her ult, it's like, well, why bother? There's so many more consistent choices that actually have more healing output. Or if you just want to use the cover as an argument, it's like, well, Mtuku has a free action half cover, right? And then yes, the wall lasts for 2 turns, but the second turn value doesn't really happen as often as you wish it did. So yeah, that's my opinion on Nadia. If you want to one-trick her, go for it. I think she's a lot of fun. I think that the wall and the ultimate are good. They're just not good enough to where she can stay out. I think she wants to be in almost always, and she just can't do that with her current design. Yeah, that's it. Last up for one tricks, I have Ozvania. Ozvania, some people might say, is the worst character in the game because she can't be healed, and I just don't think that that's true. I think that her potency and her just potential to, like, she does so much damage. She has so many like shielding options, multiple sources of healing that heal for significant amounts, might I add. It's 20 health to an Ice Angel target. It's a lot, and so she can just keep cycling the value over and over and over and over. Plus the fact that it's 8 shields per turn, so even if you were to get shot, like let's say you were to get cover damaged every single turn, and let's say, you know, for numbers sake, that let's say it's Tiamnata, right? Tiamnata deals 30 damage, and they're hitting you for cover damage every single time. That's 15, and you have 8 shields, so you're only taking 7 damage. Meaning, you're effectively taking 7 damage, potentially, every turn. You can literally get hit every turn in the game for 7 damage, assuming you never shielded yourself again, and only die once on turn like 18 or 19. That's crazy. Like, if you think about it, if Ozavania is always in cover and is shot by one person, she's not dead once until at least turn 15. So if you do the math and you play her with this idea that you're gonna die once, maybe twice, and you go in like, I'm gonna die this game, then you're good. And if you play her a bit more aggressively, because her range is a little bit lower on her one ability, but she is kind of like what I was saying with Nadia, where even though she wants to be in, she can be in, but then she has full actions from further away that are very good. You have the ring, which is the only prep phase route in the game. The character literally destroys Zio. Zio cannot play the game if he's against Ozavania, literally, by the way. And so the fact that she even has a counter pick at all is more than what I can say about the rest of these B tier characters. Is that Ozavania genuinely counters certain characters. Likewise, if you were to like self ring for the shields and you knew that a Cephalini or a Hako was going to jump on you, root it, and now they're in a horrible position. So it's only touching on a few things. She is like, if you were to exclude her passive for just a second, she's like really strong. Like really strong. And so her inability to heal is honestly what keeps her in line, because she is so strong. And even then, if you start using her Ice Angel Fortify and just you start self shielding and you start getting into this rhythm of like shield, and then Fortify, like it's crazy. Like, so she's actually really strong. It's just that if they pick like a Nadia into you, that you're dead. Like there's no way around it. You are deader than dead. Or if you get focused down or CC'd, because again, she also doesn't have means of giving anybody unstoppable, which is a big problem. And she can't heal. It's like, oof. Ozavania kind of feast or famine like Agnar, but at the very least, she doesn't need the potency to be good. She's just already top tier. In terms of her skills, she's already like top 2 support levels of good, right out of the gate. It's slashed by her lack of range on her one and her inability to be healed. But really strong character when she works, can feel really useless when she doesn't. Really strong character though to one trick in my opinion, because if you can learn the matchups and get really good positioning, she's quite a force to be reckoned with. Why is she below Nadia? Well, because Nadia has more traditional healing, she can actually keep herself alive, and she has double dashes, which means technically there's so much room for error with Nadia, whereas with Ozavania there's not as much room for error. It's actually very little. Same with Agnar, I should have mentioned. There's very little room for error with Agnar. And that's it. Like, that's it for Ozavania. And out to the weak tier, there are no frontliners in this tier. I think all the frontliners are quite strong. But first up, we have Frug. So I think Frug is the best of the 2 firepowers I have down here. Frug is... okay. You can play Frug and win. But you didn't need to pick Frug to win. Okay? He falls into this category of, for me, why the heck would I pick this character over somebody else? Like, the only time where I would say Frug is good is if you had like Mtuku as your support, because then you could give him might. But even then, it's like, that's only going to be useful once every odd time. And even then, you could argue that giving might to your firepowers is just more inherently useful anyway. But the thing that bothers me the most about Frug is like how the rock skip angles work can sometimes suck. And so your positioning is very open-ended, meaning like you have to have a wide line of sight in order to take full advantage of Frog. You can't play through little like peepholes like some other characters can, simply because of the way the bouncing works. But what's more frustrating, and I think the thing that holds him back the most by far, is the fact that the wave wall, your rock can't go through it. It just hits it and then it bounces back. It's like, oh, so if you walled to cover someone's dash, right? And they dash through it and you hit the wall, you're like, yes, awesome. And then you move up position to follow up. They might actually be safe from your follow up because of your own wall. And I think that situation happens way more than you might think it does. And it is so messed up. Like it feels so bad when that happens. His ultimate is great, like really, really good. But again, there are so many strong ultimates in this game that that's not enough. That's not enough. He has no dash. His healing is awful. Using his pool feels awful. His angles can be awful, and his wall screwing over his one bounces is awful. And if someone wants to argue with me, I think they're wrong. Like, I will not change my stance on this until Frug is changed in some way, because his kit is counterintuitive to his own kit, and while it is very like supportive and defensive in nature, it's just not effective. Like, I might as well have picked somebody else. Why would I pick Frug in this situation over somebody else? And that thought always crosses my mind. Even if I lose against a Frug, I was like, so the Frug didn't do anything. Like, you want a CCL? Pick Scrapper. You want more supportive tools? I don't know. Pick like Tasha or Cephalini, or pick a second support. Like, and doing 24 damage that ignores cover, that's not impressive. That that's not impressive. Uh, really at all. Unless you somehow get lucky with Frug and you can just keep skipping rocks to the same target over and over and over and over, which never happens. So I think the character sucks. He has no dash. The free action might is great, and his ultimate is great. But that's it. I think his one, or his rock skip, his pool, and his wall all suck. And his free action might is only good because it's free action might, and his ultimate is only good because it's a displace that is active even through the move phase, which is I think it's the only one in the game that works that way. That's my opinion on Frug. Play him if you want, but I'm sorry, I think the majority of the fire powers in the game could do that job way better. Haka. Um, the reason I have Haka below Frug is actually very simple, and I want to make this explicitly clear. Listen, I don't actually think Haka is a weak character. I do not think that Haka is a weak character. What I think about Haka is two things, and there are only two things that hold him back. Number one, I actually think his ultimate sucks. Now, I don't care that it's a free action. I'm sorry, but like, at best you're hitting two people with it, which is 20 damage, and you're healing for 10 damage off of that. Then the following turn, it's not like they're gonna walk through your smoke again. And if you're lucky, and like if say your teammate CCs them so they get hit by the smoke twice, okay, great. Let's say in a perfect world, you're gaining 40 points of value off of his ultimate. That's valuable, but it it just doesn't happen. And like, again, he has to use other abilities in order to enable your ultimate. Like, this trend of the lower tier like combo characters, right? Tasha, Zio, Haka, is they have to do multiple actions to do what one character can do with one action. That's not good. And honestly, like, Haka is best used as like a secondary frontliner who is just focusing the same target as your frontliner. And because of that idea, you're not going to be smoking like multiple enemies, right? Meaning that his free action is giving like, I don't know the numbers, but I would say on average you're probably dealing 20 damage, healing for 10, so you're getting 30 points of value. And on an ultimate, that's just not enough. Okay? It's just not enough. Now, if you want to really go to town, you would pick him with like a regulator or a Tiamnata. But the problem with picking him with regulator and Tiamnata is all three of you kind of want to play to the shadows. All three of you don't really want to brawl. All three of you want to stay out of harm's way, which means that it's really hard to help each other because you're probably playing at completely different sides of the map, meaning that it's really, really easy to get spread out. And because of that weird, like, non-synergetic behavior between the smoke characters, it doesn't really work. So I think his ultimate kind of sucks. I don't think a 30 point on average swing. I'm just going to say it's 30 points on average until someone sends me the receipts of how they're hitting multiple 40 points of value consistently, but I think you're full of shit. The other thing I think that sucks about Haka is he is one of the characters in the game who actually has counters, and here's the kicker. He has the most counters in the game. Literally. Like, yes, he has a dash, which is great, but he doesn't have like. So I'm gonna compare him to Regulator, okay? So him and Regulator arguably have similar counters, arguably, and Regulator doesn't have a dash. Why is Regulator higher than Haka? Well, because Regulator gets to just play the game for free from, you know, so far away, dealing way more damage with a way more impactful ultimate. Um, Whereas Haka has to play in the middle of the problem with only 10 more health than Regulator and has the same counters, and his dash is it's good, but it's very long cooldown at 5 turns, and it just doesn't really help. The smoke from his dash only lasting till the end of the current turn is super unfortunate. And if the smoke had persisted like an extra turn, well, okay, maybe, because now then we're getting into the smoke cloud territory of Regulator. But you could look at the roster and you look at Haka and you're like, okay, so like let me just go through it here. You've got any reveal in the game literally destroys your passive. So you have Regulator, Winifred, Cephalony, um, oh, yeah, without thinking too hard, that's it. You've got characters with stuff immediately happening around them that you don't want to dash to. So Tasha, Cephalony, Vex, Imuchin, um, characters like that, or like again, just general CC destroys the character. And, like, yeah, he just has so many things that counter him that Haka just has to kind of pray that he doesn't get counterpicked, I guess. Um, and that just sucks. It sucks. If he didn't have so many counters, I would think he's a better character. But the fact of the matter is, he has to play dangerously and hope that he doesn't get countered, and hope that he gets some decent value off his ultimate, because otherwise he's so underwhelming. He has the Tiamnata problem of, like, more often than not they're hitting cover shots, or in his case cover slashes, and yeah, he's fun to play, but I wouldn't even say that he's one trick potential, because honestly, like, it doesn't matter how good of a Haka you are, those counters always exist, right? And that sucks. That does not feel good. Whereas Frug, I think if you were the best Frug in the game, it wouldn't matter, because all the things he's doing are done better by other characters. And that's the problem with these two guys, is they're so outclassed, or in Haka's case, so easily countered. Why bother? And now, I've also gone on the record saying, why would I play Haka when I can play Barb? And I actually do still believe that. I think that Barb does what Haka does way better. And since Zio was added to the game, I would even go so far as to say Zio might do what Haka does better. But I think Barb is a bit more of an appropriate comparison, because the vision doesn't matter. You're far more sustainable. You can't be CC'd. You have a CC. You have a second CC. You have healing. And you swing harder on a more regular basis in a similar range. So, like, even if you don't really appreciate that comparison, then Croc. Pick a double frontline composition. Like, if you were going to go, I'm just going to pick names. Eris, Juliet, Zage, Haka. You could go Eris, Juliet, Zage, Croc, or Barb, and get literally the same performance. Like, I promise you, Haka can just be done better by a more bruiser frontline that does good damage. So again, Barb, Proc, or yeah, Zeo. And I truly believe that. I don't think Haka is ever the pick. And last and probably least, which is actually super unfortunate, but I have Chloe. Now, here's the thing with Chloe. I really like this character. I think that her design is really cool. I like the idea of a puppet support. I've always loved drone and like puppet based characters in any genre, strategy games, fighting games, whatever. But the thing with Chloe is, well, number one, she has awful healing output without her ultimate because she only heals off of her 2, which only heals for 10 per ally it passes over, or the ultimate, which heals for 30 as it comes back and then explodes in the 5x5 around you. That's it. So she doesn't have healing on her 1 ability, she doesn't have healing on her shielding ability, she doesn't have healing on her dash ability, so that kind of sucks. But her damage output, unless her and the drone are hitting the same target, because when that happens, it's 28 damage. It's the highest of most of, or one of the highest damage coefficients that a support can do with one action in the game. The thing is, that's assuming no cover, and they both have line of sight, and rarely does that happen. I would say more often than not, you're hitting more like 24 with the drone being cover, and it would be what 20, 10, it'd be 18, I think, right? Yeah, 18 if the cover was towards you and not the drone. So her damage can be pretty low. Her healing is non-existent. Her dash is pretty bad, frankly. Um, and her ultimate requires your allies to position and line up accordingly to get good value. Because I don't know, I'm gonna be honest. Ultimate for one ally and you, if you're like decently healthy, that feels pretty bad. Like hitting 5 for that, it doesn't feel great. Um, it's worth it though. Like if you're gonna get 90 points of value off the ult, that's a good ult. Like if you break it down into value, her ultimate is really, really, really good value if it hits at least 2 other targets, meaning you plus an enemy and an ally, or 2 allies or 2 enemies. But it still feels bad because then it was like, oh man, my Violetta is over there and she needs health, but then my Yuri is over there and he needs health, and then my Emuchin is right in front of me and needs health. Like how the fuck, like what can I do? You can't do anything. There's nothing you can do. And so it feels awful. The saving grace with Chloe is the fact that her shielding is massive, right? The fact it gives unstoppable in a big cone from both her and the drone, and they stack up to 48 if someone's hit by both. Like, yeah, that's great. But the fact that she can only shield herself for the 16 from the drone, and then does not benefit really ever from her own drone abilities, whether that's the healing or the shielding, is very, very unfortunate. And really, the only time Chloe really pops off is when you're using her to like pocket a frontliner. So for example, if you pick Emuchin or Barb and they're just constantly picking on one enemy target the entire game, and then you pick Chloe to only drone that one person, like in a vacuum, that's so strong. Like it's such a good play. But it's not just the 2 of you. It's the 4 of you. And that's my problem with Chloe. I think she is incapable of supporting her whole team. And I think she is incapable at even supporting 2 people on her team. And I mean that. And that includes herself. Like her ability to even support herself sucks. Um, so your team has to position correctly. Your self-supporting abilities kind of suck. The drone value is only there if your allies are CCing. Otherwise, it's like, phew, there goes a drone, and you basically have to be predictive and hope that the enemy walks into it in order to do damage twice. Or in order for your ally to benefit from it, they have to stay under your drone, so then they get the 10 health, right? And then the 10 shields. Like that's great. When the drone works, it works. But the thing is, the amount of times that it works, or sorry, when it's working, that usually means the rest of your team is getting fucking annihilated if you yourself aren't getting annihilated. And that's unfortunate. Because I think she's a lot of fun. Now here's the thing. Oh, but Zedd, like what, what if I pick double support and then she just pockets the front line and then eye pocket her and the other firepower. It's like, okay, great, try it. The problem with running Chloe in a double support composition is the damage output. Your damage output starts to tank really fast, really hard. Even if you pick Esme, and the problem with Esme Chloe as a comp, I've tried it, is now you have like two vulnerable targets, and if Chloe is focusing the frontliner and supporting them, it's like, well, Esme's designed to help the frontliner too, but the frontliner doesn't have the capability to like 1v7. It's just not really, it's not going to work. Especially if the enemy team is running double firepower, and now your Chloe and your Esme are getting pew-pewed, but then they can't, like, it doesn't work. Because Chloe isn't self-sufficient enough to be good in a double support composition, whereas like say Agnar, right, he has so many tools, he does high damage at triple potency, and he has access to self-healing that doesn't require him to ultimate for it, right? Whereas Chloe does. And yeah, I don't know, I can talk about Chloe for a while because she's sort of a victim of circumstance. It's not that she is bad, it's that the way the game is played doesn't work for her. Even in a coordinated environment, like even if we assumed high level 4v4, it would still be hard to get much more than 90 points of value off of a Chloe ultimate. And when I say 90 points of value, I don't just mean 30 30 30. I mean effective 30 30 30. So if you as the Chloe player are at like 90 health, right, 90 of 120, and you ultimate and you've topped yourself up to 120, I don't know, man. That's not that valuable because at that point you might as well just grab a health power up when you get a chance, and it is effectively the same thing. So that's not really valuable, at least my perspective. But anyway, there you have it. I think Chloe is the worst support in the game. I think that Frog and Haka are the worst characters in the game, or sorry, firepower characters in the game. I think that Frog is just simply garbage. I think that Haka has too many counters and is outclassed by other characters. The one tricks, if you play any of those characters, you are still at, like, you could still be the best player in the game and you'll be fine. I just think that characters in S or A do the B tier's jobs far, far better, and then the characters in B plus, the niche tier, when the situations call for it, they are some of the best characters, if not the best characters in the game. For example, Yuri on Nexus, literally top 2, or like Mebs with Lilvana, literally top 2. So keep those situations in mind. Anywho, my opinion, it's my tier list. I know it was long, and if you stuck it out, thanks so much. And feel free to generate discussion. Let me know what you think. Tell me why you think Chloe's the best character in the game. Tell me why you think Vex is bottom tier, or why Eris is actually a one-trick character and not consistent. That's a discussion. So I'll catch you guys later. I'll see you in game and on Discord. Zedd, if you need me, you know who it is. It's the Lore Master. And catch you next time.